Hello there and welcome if you are a League of Legends fan. I know it is the best time of the year, the World Championships are going on, as hyped as you are. This is why I decided to revisit one of my older projects. I present to you LOL Drafter. It is now live, you can go on draft.leg.ovh, all the links will be in the description, to test it and practice your drafting abilities. So what's new? You still have the ability to draft alone. If you click on this button, you see that you are taken to a draft page. You will be able to pick and ban champions. You see at the top that the instructions, if it's a red ban or it's blue pick or red pick, will be displayed. And the drafts are filling up as we go. You still have the ability to filter by role, the laners, the mid laners, the mid, the ADCs, the supports, every champion is there but one. We will talk about it later in the video. You still have the ability, for example, to search for a role. Supports with SEN is going to be singed. If I remove the support filter, I can do a Lee Sin. And a singe, why not? And let's finish this draft by clicking randomly on champions. It's a process and you get GG. And if you go back, you see that the draft with singed and Lee Sin will be displayed. So on the main page, all the draft by all the people will be displayed and you will be able to vote on your favorite draft. For example, this draft, I'm a big fan of Singe, so I will vote red until the odds for this draft. What's new is that you also now have the ability to draft with a friend. If you click on this button, you will see a new panel here with a link, and you can copy this link and send it to your friend. So I will open a private window to simulate him. And he will be able to connect and the two of you will be able to play together. So you will always be blue if you if you create the draft and send it to someone. So if your friend wants to be blue, he goes to the site and creates the draft. But you see that we have a really fine multiplayer feeling where you will be able to draft with anyone in the world. Instructions on the top are very clear. You can play if you have to wait for your opponent / friend to play. Let me go at the end of this draft. Let's put Atrox here, Banakali, Banalistar, we pick Ombessa, Amumu. The draft now appeared in the home section for all to see. And for this draft, we are going to vote for blue. The odds tilting in the favor of the Corki draft. Well, it's now live, so you can go and play with it and just enjoy the rest of the world. The rest of the video is going to be long, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. The first is how to make this application in a few hundred lines of Python. This is the power of Datastar. It's very complex, you have voting mechanism, drafts and all, and it's just a few hundred lines of Python to have this application. This is what I promise you at the end of the video. But if you're already, one of the cult, you will see a lot of cool stuff. You will see CQRS, you will see carry strings, pattern matching, SQLite, so a lot of exciting stuff. Make sure to get comfortable, grab your coffee and put on your polo hat, because we are about to dive into the code of LOL Draft. Alright, if you didn't watch the previous video, I really encourage you to watch it, because I won't go over all the details. I will only talk about the new stuff. Please, link will be in the description, go watch it before and grab a second coffee because it is quite long as well. The first thing that you want to do to make this kind of application description is to have good starting data. It's always very important. This is why I define a file called chumps.py, where I will give a number to every champion, ranging from 0 to 170 League of Legends champions, and they all have different characteristics. They have a name, they have a role, so if they play on the top lane or if they play in the jungle, and they have a sheet. So sheet will be the image on which the champion is. I have reused my method in the previous project of taking sprite sheets, like in a video game. So all the 170 champions can fit on 3 little images. They all have a little square, but we send 3 images to the client, and then you will say to the browser which square to show. So very nice technique from that's a bit from video game designs. Oh, by the way, all this page, you won't believe how easy it is to make, but you won't believe either how small it is and how fast it is. Like, it's the fastest drafter you will ever see. By the way, there are very few, if you search for LOL draft, there are not a lot of working stuff. You know, there are really ugly stuff, and most of them, they don't work really well. So it does seem like something complicated to make. But this, as you see here, with the compression and all, like a less than 1 megabyte page. So you can draft in 3G in the plane, taking you back from China because you've been eliminated in the Swiss stage. It's hard being a Mad Lions fan. But yeah, I challenge anyone to create a drafter that takes less space than this. In less lines of code, there is 0 JavaScript involved in this except for a 10 kilobyte shim called Datastar. 0 JavaScript for everything that you're... Alright, we have some good starting data with our champions. Now it's time to create our index.html page. We are just going to use Datastar. Something that is really important to note, we are on version 6, release candidate 6. This means that there are breaking changes to my previous videos, but we will go over the changes of R6 in this video. We import some CSS, some Datastar, that's all we need. We are going to obviously use a fat morph, so put a data init on the body. Data init is the new data onload if you're coming from previous Datastar versions. Data init means the moment that this element is initialized on the page, this function here, get home updates, will be executed. This is a Datastar function, so expecting a SSE event, which is a standard HTML response. And we are going to do CQRS, we are going to stream the updates to the home page into the body. Calculate the body every time, stream it, replace it, and we'll be good to go. Anyway, some title, draft alone, draft with a friend. The buttons are very simple A-links, not Datastar buttons, no need to use Datastar for this. We say latest draft, we put some loading spinner while the connection is made with the backend. It's so fast that I am lucky to be able to set like a 3G connection and reload the page so that you are able to see this spinner. This is on 3G. This is on 3G. By the way, I use Datastar. So let me disable that. This is our index. The very common and standard pattern when you are able to do CQRS on your backend. Let's see how the backend is set up. We have our application on Sanic, still using Sanic at the moment. We are going to use the little tools from Async.io, Redis as our pub/sub manager, and Peewee is the newcomer. So Peewee is going to be our ORM for this video. This means that I am not going to write SQLite, I'm going to do object-oriented programming, define some data structures, and let Peewee handle the data operations for me. We will see at the end if that was a good choice or not. Then we are going to import some utilities that I am going to put in all of my projects. Views are going to be Python functions that, based on a state that we know, write the corresponding HTML. So we have a view for the home page, we have a view for the draft page. Models are going to be our Peewee models. We are going to record the drafts, obviously, and the vote. And for move order is a little utility that we will see later. We initialize our application, define our static folder, and then our index as a static that gets served quicker as well. We update the default response timeout for Sanic, because Sanic will close connections after 60 seconds, and while you're waiting for your opponent to play, we don't want the connection to drop. It's not a big deal, I mean, go back and click on the page or initialize a connection, but we are going to leave connections open for 10 minutes. I think it's a reasonable amount of time to draft. After we had some logging, we are going to open the connections before the server starts. So we open a connection to an SQLite database, we put it inside the context of the app. We are going to bind the models that we defined in models.py. We are going to connect the base and we are going to create the tables if the application is restarting. Finally, we connect a Redis client right here that we are going to use for messaging our pub/sub manager and broker. Don't forget after the server stops to close these connections this way. We are going to put an on response to make sure that we give a cookie to every user that goes into the site. It's going to be a unique identifier if they visit. So this is slightly different than my previous projects. We are only gonna put the cookies on the index page and we will see why later. It's finally time to see how we set up our CQRS patterns with the home updates route that we saw in our index.html file. We put the little wrapper Datastar response from the SDK so that every response has the correct text, event stream, headers, and stuff like that. And we define our async function way. First, get the user ID, create a pub/sub manager, think of it like a message broker, which is going to subscribe to the main page, and then we are going to try to listen, for any message on this connection with an async for. We don't really care what the message is. That's one of the strengths of CQRS. Anything happens on the home page, we refresh it for everybody. Anything happens, the pub/sub listen will emit a message, and then this bit of code will be executed. Await home page. So we print the new view. So in most cases, this is going to be the home page plus all the drafts that were created. Or maybe if there's a vote, also, we reprint the home page directly and we patch elements. some syntactic stuff, so when cancellation is over, we can unsubscribe gracefully from this PubSub broker. And there you have it. This is the most basic CQRS pattern that you can get. Very free with Datastar, and this means that whenever a new draft is added, whenever a vote is made by anybody, we are going to populate the PubSub brokers with messages and redraw the page. The whole page was redrawn, sent with patch elements, and as you saw, it took less than a picosecond. Is, as always, kind of nice. Let's take a look now to the buttons. What do they do? Draft alone or draft with a friend? We are going to link them to draft, and as a parameter mode, we get the cookie. And then we are going to make heavy use of this later, so I'll go slowly now. We are going to use the match syntax in Python. Match case, if you're coming from other languages, it's kind of like a switch statement. If we are receiving a request on the draft/solo, we create a draft this way. So solo, we say blue and red are the same people, and if it's a draft with a friend, we say blue will be this guy and red is none for the moment. And case solo redirect, this is a typo. If it's someone that tries to access draft / whatever, we have a catch-all case with this underscore here. We'll redirect them to the home page. Then finally, when we create something with Peewee, we are going to get back the ID of the element that we created, and we are going to redirect to /d /draft ID, route that we are going to catch right after that, this way. And if you take a look at draft page, you are going to see we prepare a response with very few lines of HTML, because as you can see, we are going to do CQRS all over again. So we send this, we can resend the head. Hopefully it will be cached by the server, but don't forget that it's a friend coming from, I don't know, the WhatsApp link that you sent him. They won't have Datastar, they won't. So we can send back shell of the draft, and body will initiate the CQRS pattern with the data in it. Right there, and a get request, so Datastar get request to d/draft ID /draft updates. Did home updates, we are going to do the same, draft updates. Anything happens on a draft, it goes inside the view function. A little spinner to make them wait. Now, how did I handle the invite a friend mechanism? If the people trying to access the draft doesn't have a cookie, it's most likely then the friend you're waiting for. We create a cookie just for him. We add it to the response. We search for the draft that is embedded in the link that you sent to your friend. We retrieve this draft and we modify the red attribute with this new user ID. We don't forget to save, tell Peewee to persist the change, and then we publish to the specific channel. So draft :draft ID. Colon is a common way to delimit space in the Redis world. And we send a message. I send rug pull. I can send faker. I can send whatever. It doesn't matter the message. As you will see in the draft update, we are going to use an async for message. This message is grayed out because it's not even used. and write this. It's going to be exactly the same. The draft updates. It's a route with a draft ID. We connect to the corresponding pub sub, you see, with these two lines right here. And then for any time there's a message, even the first published message that Redis will send when you're connected to a pub sub channel, we send the patch elements, we send the new view function, we send the new view of the draft. Then you see we still have some like 40, I don't know, 20 lines of code to define all the vote and pick mechanism. I'm going to comment it later. If name to run the application with a Unix socket, and that's all. And that's all. This application is just CQRS done 2 times, one in the home channel, one in the draft that you're looking at. So very few lines of code in your core application, which I find really nice. Maybe we can take a look at how we define our models now. So, to define our models, we are going to use from PWE import model, going to be base model for anything, and then the fields that we need. We are going to use 4 fields: autofield, small integer, UID, and a datetime. And from datetime, import datetime, we are going to use it for the default of datetime. How to define, an object that will be stored in a database table with PWE. Show you. You can first define an ID for it with an autofield. And primary key equals true. So autofield, which it does mean an incrementing counter. If there are 50 drafts in the database and you add one, we'll get an ID of 51. Alright. It's very good at doing that, but it's not necessary. You can skip this step and you will see that for the votes I skip it, because if you don't add this line, PWE will add it for you. Everything needs an autofield ID as their primary key. So I'm not very comfortable with SQLite yet. For the previous projects I used TinyDB, stored everything as a JSON, but I want that you can just learn stuff. I didn't go into the joins, tables and stuff like that. I tried to keep it as simple as possible to not mess things up. It was still a very long project to make a lot of devils, a lot of details. Created, why not, a datetime field with a default. That was to display that you can have a default and that you rate it like this. Not like this. Like this, very important. You pass the core function that you want to be called. Every time you create a draft without specifying created, you will get datetime, the current datetime of the system. We have, of course, the unique identifier fields for blue and red side. And we have to specify that the red side can be null. Else SQLite won't like that, and we'll throw an error. So if you have some null fields that can be empty, you put that explicitly in your code. We are going to have the current move, which is going to be a counter from 0 to 20, and which will indicate whether it's a blue ban, a red pick. By the way, I can just show you what the move order looks like. So it does look like a bit complex, and if you don't want to have a lot of functions, you can just write red 1. So R1B means red side first ban, blue side first ban, blue side second ban, red side second ban, red side third ban, blue side third ban, and blue side first pick, blah 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 blah. So we defined it, the order of move, picks, ban in our system, and we give all of them a number, and this is what we are going to store into this current move field. Then of course the bands, we are going to store ID of the champion that went into the ban or into the pick. They are obviously null when we start a draft, so we don't forget to specify it. All the drafts and all the pick. The number of votes, small integer field, and default equals 1, because when you create a draft you don't have any votes. And I didn't want to divide by 0, so 1 vote for everybody. But I'm sure that you guys figure it out. I create draft myself, I vote on 1, and I get 2/3, 1/3. So I'm sure that, as my viewers are very intelligent, you guys already got that. Then for the vote class is going to be really simple, no ID, as I said, no need to define it, just who clicked on what. User ID, draft ID, I'm not even bothering with if you voted for blue or voted for red. My only goal here is that when you vote on a draft, I remove the buttons so that you can't vote on it anymore. I'll come back on that later for Zungster specific. Well. This was really easy, just have a mental image of data, you use PW to create it with the right fields. Now, let's take a look at the home page and how it is made in the view function. So we are going to go to our views file. We see that we'll be using obviously the ID of the champs right there and the draft and vote elements that we define. The home page is a function that takes user ID because I will need to know on which drafts you picked. I will select all the drafts. I want to display all the drafts. I will only select the drafts where you voted. So how do you do that? You use the where clause with pw. To a vote.select, you get everything you where, just like in TinyDB. Vote.userid equals user ID. Then you filter out the drafts that were where this user voted. So user voted will be this kind of filtering. You prepare a list for the draft HTML, and then for every draft, if not draft.currentMove equals 20, continue. This does mean that if the draft is not yet finished, we leave it in peace. Or if it was abandoned in the middle of the process, we leave it, we are not going to bother with it. Only going to display completed. Total votes will be draft vote blue plus draft vote red. Then for a draft, we will put it in an article. I do like by semantic HTML. The ratio will be a button with data on click post to d/draft ID. And here we have this little question mark. This is called query string. We'll see that later. Vote blue. If the draft ID is not in what the user voted, else I take the buttons back from you and I send an empty div instead. I put a blue ratio and a red ratio, and I can embed, the style in it with the percentage of votes from one side or the other, so either the blue votes or the red votes. After that, the same stuff for the red button. And it's time for the picks. And the picks we are beginning to see a lot of HTML, but trust me, it's very easy. So, for a champion, the picks. We start with data sheets. So, as I said, the champions are different sprite sheets. I need to track that. It is in my database as champion ID sheet. But for the champion ID, I can just call draft.b1p to get the blue pick, the first blue pick for this specific draft that we carried just here in the for draft in drafts. We are reviewing draft by draft, and with PWE we are able to iterate on them quite easily. Same stuff for the champion. I have to put a name. I have to put an area described by, so that you get the name when you hover over the champion. I added this for my girlfriend who's not very accustomed to the different champions in League of Legends. The area attribute, I stack elements on top of each other and I reveal them on hover to have this effect. The little area attribute is there right after this. So ID area, blah blah blah, role equals tooltip, so that I can target it with CSS and give it the good behavior. I put the name here, draft P1P, and I close my tooltip div and my big div. For the bands, as you guess, it's going to be exactly the same, except I think I didn't add the tooltips for the bands. Too much HTML even for me. And I had in the middle a little BS SVG right there for, style points, which are always very important. And the end of the function will just be this, HTML equals, you put a div ID equal draft, because Datastar is going to morph based on IDs, and if you remember the index.html, we prepare the div ID draft with a little loader in it. That's perfect. Datastar will switch that for the new view of every draft that we have in the system. See that the dependencies are really minimal. It's just what I need, the user ID. For the draft page, I'm going to need the draft ID and the user ID. Draft get the same stuff as before. Instruction and alert, so that's for multiplayer purposes. Let's see how I did that. We can maybe click on draft with a friend. See how I made this HTML. What I do is I check if it's the blue view or the red view. So I just compare the user ID that was sent to the user ID of draft.blue in the database. If it's blue, I can, for example, say it's not your turn to play or it's your turn to play, based on what I know of the current move, and this is exactly what I'm going to do. Reusing the match case syntax from Python, you see that the match case can take multiple scenarios if you separate them with a bar just like this. So red band will be on the 1, 2, 5, 13 and 14 current moves. In this case we change the instruction at the top and we put an alert if there's a blue view, blah blah blah. You see here that I put an alert if blue view, and you wonder about the solo case. It's very simple. At the end, if draft.blue equals draft.red, we are in a solo game, we reset the alert, so don't worry about it. If you're following very closely, you might have had questions. We continue, so based on the case of the current move, we display a different instruction, and in multiplayer we display different alerts. And because our view function is able to query the database and search for the right informations, it's not going to be a problem at all to have this behavior. And if there's a bug or we are at last move, we put instruction equals GG. If there's not a red player yet, so we have a blue player who created a multiplayer draft, but they are still waiting for their friend to join, we put a little alert instead of this wait for your friend to play. Then all champs, we are going to recover all champs from the database. This is really quick because we already retrieved the object with PWE. We are just accessing the properties of the peaks and the ban. Here we have a little chef trick to remember the peaks and the bans can be null. If they are null, we are going to put cheat equals -1 and name equals missing no, and we are using this little dictionary as our lookup for missing null values. This little chef tricks is for me. I hope that you do like instruction class. So if I want to color the instruction in blue or in red, very easy, barely an inconvenience. Check the string. If there's blue in the string, instruction class blue instruction, class red instruction, and we are going to use some CSS to color it one color or the other. Then we have all we need to constitute our HTML, body, the instructions with the instruction class and the instruction text. Okay, pay attention, we're going to construct the HTML file. Let's go, body class equals JC. We are going to morph the whole body, the instruction with the instruction class and the text, the alert, if there's an alert, and then in a wrapper we are going to put in the blue side the peaks and the bans. So for every champion that we got in the database, we are going to get each sheet together. Sorry. And we are using the chef trick so that if there's a miss on the database, it's not a big deal. Data sheet will be -1, data name will be missing no, and we are going to be able to style this with CSS all together. Data champion. These are not Datastar attributes, by the way. They are just data attributes that you're supposed to do in correct semantic HTML, but don't worry, it doesn't conflict with Datastar at all. Data champion, we are going to retrieve the name, blah 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 blah. The picker, I've already went through the picker behavior in the previous video. Reminder to white sheet, I will put the link in the description. So all the champions are here. We just pick our champions from the database and we add them inside the blue side. We will build the champion picker. I won't tell how I made the champion picker. It's the same as the previous video. If you're interested in how I built this, you can watch the previous video. It's going to be the same, except that now we have the new Datastar syntax. So data signals colon filter to instead of data dash as dash filter. Alright, the if missing, because we are going to be patching the stuff and we want to preserve. For example, I'm looking at top laners, I'm going to click on add rocks and the whole body element will be merged, but I want the top filter to stay in. So if missing, very practical for this specific use case. We have the roles with some area at the top to indicate the lane. We have, okay, so the roles here, we have the input with a data bind colon search, and we have all the front-end reactivity that we need for this. We don't need for this in our backend, so Datastar signals are a perfect fit for that. The legends are going to be a data on colon click and a post request to /d/draft ID, and we are going to stay very hypermedia. Once again, this little question mark to use our values later in the application. Peak equals event.target.id. Events will bubble up into the legend speaker with their ID and will send different routes. I can show you, for example, if I open the network tab on this, clicking on Ari or clicking on Akali will give me request to /d/12 question marks peak equal 1 for Ari, peak equal 2 for Akali, peak equals 3 4, 5, so I'm just sending the ID of the champion and my backend will process it. We'll see that finally later, if not alert. So very important, by the way, I can disable this on the backend, if not alert. If there's an alert, because it's not your turn to play, you don't get the data on click. You can still send to this route and I have to perform the correct checks on my backend, but it's more dev time. So this is quick and dirty way to make sure that 99% of your users won't abuse your application. And then for every champion, I will add their role, their data sheet, data champion. I will add a banned attribute if they are in the all champs list. So if the champion was already selected, I add a banned attribute that will make him gray and disable the pointer events to this champion so that you're not able to click on it. The data show if there's a filter or if there's a search. The describe by, role to be, blah 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 blah. Very, very simple stuff. I went into great details to explaining it in the previous video. Please watch it. We add the red side and we're good. We have our view function. And that's all. That's the view function for the draft, which is, I remind you, as alerts, dynamic instructions, multiplayer, a lot of different attributes. This is one view function. We get the necessary data that we want. Which turn is it to play? Which turn of the draft is it? Is the draft completed? But we take it all from our database in the backend. We construct the view. Very simple function. State equals view. And bam. We just send a patch element. Everything that you see obviously is live and you see the morph is pretty fast. Patching of elements in a fat morph is still very, very fast. This is mostly because I am using KDE as my reverse proxy, so I have not broadly enabled, but I have compression enabled. I think it's ZSTD enabled, and actual data that is transmitted is very, very low between two morphs. I'm sending everything in the HTML, resulting transfer of data is very, very fast. Alright, so that was the view function. Now let's look at the last lines of logic of our application. If I have a post request to the /draft ID, so once again trying to exploit hypermedia at its fullest. If I have a GET request, I set up this CQRS route. If I have a POST request, very good that I'm able to differentiate between them because I know the modification on this specific draft. We are going to define that POST route based on the draft ID. We can use vote unchamp, request.args.getVote, request.args.getPick. So this is what you get after, your question mark. If I have a request to draft.leg.ovh, a post request to draft.leg.ovh /d/56 and peak equals 0, I can read this. This is the power of hypermedia. Alright, this is a post request, so we'll modify stuff to the draft with ID 56, and the arguments of the request is peak equals 0, and I can also have vote equals blue, I think, or vote equals red. I'm able to use hypermedia to write cleaner and simpler code. I take the I check the database and retrieve the corresponding draft. If the user is not in blue or red, I return, we are having someone who is not inside the draft go away. I could also redirect him to... No, it's a post request, so I don't redirect. I return nothing. This will return a 204, by the way, thanks to the very nice behavior of Datastar responses wrapper. So you don't need to specify 204, no content, nothing. And there's a little subtlety here, the way the UIDs are stored inside Piwi model and inside Sanix. Sometimes there are dashes, sometimes there are not. I have a little sanitizer to take care of this. Then, again, the match case, but this time we are going to match two stuff. We checked for votes, we checked for picks. I don't want to do if, and nested everywhere in my code. I can match on two stuff. If it's vote blue on champ, I can add the blue vote. The way I add the blue vote is very simple. I say vote create, I create a new vote. So this user voted on this draft. I add 1 to the blue votes. I save what I did. And then I push a notification because main has changed. And it will need to be redrawn for anyone watching the main page. So this is like pure CQRS when you are modifying stuff, when you are modifying the votes, for example. You don't return anything, just perform the modification and then notify to the connection that's pushing updates, hey, you have something new. This could be blah blah blah, of course, as well. Red is going to be the exact same case. If vote is none, but we do have a champ, if the draft is over, it's over. We saw that before, after 20 moves, the draft is over, we don't perform any modification. Then we want to, for example, change B1P, first blue pick. But we only have, the current move. So we know that in move order, right here, B1P will be 6. So I get the current move, I get the corresponding string font, so I get 6 in current move and I get B1P as a key, and then I use setAtr, which is a default Python function that will allow me to set the named attribute on my draft. So this will allow me to set draft.b1p equals to champ. Because I don't know at the advance, I can't write draft.key because there's no key element in my model. There's a b1p element, but I don't know what current move will it be. So this is a way to get around this problem. Very elegant, just a little setAtr and you're done. I increment current move by 1. Not worrying too much about race conditions, there shouldn't be any at this point because we are using CQRS. It'll be mostly fine. If at the end of this move the draft is over, we push an update to main. Why not? We can push updates on whichever channel we want. Hey, there's a new draft completed. Tell everybody on the index page to refresh their view. And after a modification on the draft, obviously, we are going to notify everybody looking at the draft that something has changed. Alright, because you guys love CSS, let's do some CSS. And after that, I will share my finishing thoughts on this project, what it taught me. Let's go. We import gold CSS, my little helper library, saved me so much time, and I really encourage everybody to try it. A very useful library. We defined the champions in a different CSS file. So once again, this is the same stuff that we did in the previous video to make it work with sprite sheets. You define a fixed width and height and a fixed background size. Then, depending on the datasheet, you load a different background image, so the corresponding sheet, just 3. And then for every champion I had to put where it was in the sprite sheet. So 183 lines of champions positions. We do love this. We import some fonts to give it nicer looks. And oh look, when you call fonts.googleapi.com, CSS do, and this little question mark, they do use query strings as well. Google uses hypermedia. I wonder if they're part of the cult. We are going to define some colors that I just took some screenshots from League of Legends and picked the colors so that it really looked like League of Legends. And in the body, this little font family, this background, this little color, height. For the H1 and the P, yeah, the stuff at the top is going to be a P element. So we are going to use this very nice teal prism family of fonts that you can find on Google. We are going to make them full width, disable the background on the P tags, the blue instructions, background equals blue, the red instructions, background equals red. I am able to have a very good specificity because I use IDs, I use classes, make sure that my CSS, even if I'm just prototyping, I'm having very little trouble with it. The button, we'll style them, we disable the text decoration on the A, we don't underline, a little transform effect on over, it's very subtle, they move up a little and they brighten a little, indicate that they are clickable and some stuff is going on. For the ratio, we are going to use a grid. Let me make another draft very quickly. Maybe I can talk about the drafts. For the overarching stuff, it's going to be grids, grids, and grids. A grid for instruction and the wrapper. Then the wrapper will be a grid. Blue side, picker, red side. Here. Then the blue side is going to be a grid with the header, and then ban, 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 ban. And then the picker is going to be a grid with the buttons at the top and the legends. And the legends is going to be a grid of every champions. So 8 champions per row, that I can very easily modify that number. And with CSS, you see how smooth it is. I just love it. And yeah, grid, 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 and a lot of stacking for the little tooltips that you see. I am using Jay-Z from, not the singer, Jay-Z from the Gold CSS library to stack elements on top of each other. This is how you make nice stuff in CSS. Alright. And when I pick on stuff for the banned champions, I put a little sepia filter. For the picked champions, I mean, for the banned champions, it's a black and white filter. These all very common CSS filters, so you can use them. See my instructions at the top, and I wanted a new draft to appear at the end to show you the ratios and the buttons. As always, we are going to make a grid with one div to vote, one div to vote, and in the middle, as you saw in the home view, we define the width inline style as a % of the votes. And I will vote red for this one, and I will vote blue for this one. This is why it mattered to put an anti-div inside of the button so that the grid behavior stayed coherent. Blue ratio button first child is blue, button last child is red. Using first child and last child is also a good way to reduce the amount of markup that you put in your CSS. They have a custom with the buttons. We put some styling as well, nothing too fancy about it. The picks and band that you see here, they are going to be grids, of course. A grid with 5 elements, 1 element, 5 elements. So we have our little VS, which will take the remaining space here at the center. Some gaps between them for readability. The image is going to be the VS image. I give it a little yellow background, very League of Legends style. The bands, as I said, a grayscale filter. The wrapper, so we are back at the draft. A grid. If you think there's not a lot of CSS, because Gold CSS is doing a lot of work to center and stack elements. Draft header we put at the top, this little grid column here, so that blue draft and red draft are rightly positioned. Some outlines as well for indicating which side you're on and to better have a delimitation on elements. I'm going to see these outlines inside blue side data champion and red side data champions. Very easy to do this with CSS. The picker, the roles, nothing too fancy, just some grid adjustments. The input, the images, the tooltip, we translate them a bit so that they're on top of the champion. Selected, we have a little drop shadow effect. This yellow drop shadow effect to better indicate which champion you are hovering. Doesn't take a lot of time but does a lot of work. And yes, very important for the bubbling of events inside Legend, we disable the pointer events and we re-enable them for every data champion that is not banned. Another hover filter. Max width, max height, so it's not very responsive, but hey, alright, it was enough work as it is. Some scroll bar styling, right there. Some filter for the band stuff. The tooltips, alert, so that's what you see in multiplayer. Just give it a little black drop shadow to make it look like it's on top of stuff. The spinning yellow loader has some CSS animation. So it's just a CSS animation on this side. I will throttle the network one last time so that you guys can enjoy the little loader. Oh, look at him. This is a little CSS. And this is on 3G, by the way. It's on 3. Very performant application, a full multiplayer CRUD app in 1 megabyte and a few hundred lines of Python. Once again, Datastar wins. Really put in the comment if you disagree. Try to do better. Finally, I wanted to leave you with my thoughts about this project, what it taught me. The first one being, did I enjoy using SQLite even through an ORM for the first time? The answer is no. The answer is no, because TinyDB was so very practical. I enjoyed putting attributes and thinking into an object-oriented model, but as I didn't make use of joins or other powerful SQLite stuff, this wasn't that useful. That being said, it's, I guess, more professional. It's going to be better in the future. I hope that this website will have some success because there aren't a lot of drafters in the internet. It does seem to be something. But I do enjoy the flexibility of TinyDB for the moment, and as I mean, it was a good stuff that I tried to back off the complexity of SQL as much as possible. Do this simple stuff. Wasn't that painful. And it's very, very small. Storing inside an SQLite file will be more compressed than a JSON object, that's for sure. That's for sure, so I don't have big size, I don't know. It depends on what will happen on this project, but I was expecting it though. I was expecting it to be slow somehow. And you see that this application, CQRS, pathmorphs, and database, SQLite database, it's just so fast. Actually, it's so fast. This is online. It's so fast. The writes are very fast, even they are supposed to be the slowest part. And the funny stuff is that inside my application, when I first started my project, I started to write these lines. These lines were the beginning of an implementation of a leaky bucket algorithm. So what I wanted to show in this video was how I used the pub/sub mechanism so that the post route add to a bucket of operations, and then I process every 10 seconds, you know, the 5 first operations inside that bucket over and over, and you kind of have some sort of back pressure to handle it the same way that Anders did in his checkboxes example. It's so fast, I didn't even need it. And as a matter of fact, I want my next video. My videos are not doing very great, alright? Then weeks on projects, days on making videos, and I get 100 views. So I want my next video to be Datastar for absolute beginners. And I tried to think about the most practical way to approach it. No. And the way I approach this, and the way that Delaney likes to see Datastar, is immediate mode. And this is a term from game development where you have a game loop. So it's kind of like a ripple, read, eval, print loop, except you just read the inputs, modify the view and redraw everything, and read the inputs and modify the view and redraw everything. And the games that do this, they have an FPS. So even if League of Legends you have an FPS, so frames per second, it's the able of loops that you're able to complete in 1 second. And it made me wonder, because I got so much power thinking about this project in immediate mode and thinking, okay, we redraw everything, we fatmorph, and we have a multiplayer live update stuff for free out of the box, just by thinking of it like a game. It's a CRUD app that you think like a game. And this idea of FPS was running around in my brain, because when you do Datastar for absolute beginners, you are going to have to tell them about async code. And this was a big step for me. Write my code async, to leave Flask, to learn about async IO, learn about two-thread. I encourage you to watch the previous video if you didn't already. The subtleties of threaded, parallel coding. Maybe the best way to approach Datastar for an absolute beginner will be immediate mode sync. Have an FPS clock on your page. Maybe that's the simplest stuff that we can imagine. Every 10 milliseconds, that's very reasonable for inputs, redraw everything, send every whenever you update the right channel. I don't know what you think about it, but I do hope that you enjoyed this video. I do hope that you will use the drafter. I do hope that you don't play League of Legends, and if you do, well, I'm sorry for you. I'm in the same boat, but at least we have Worlds. Mad Lion is out, G2 is still in the competition, so let's go G2. I don't have any hopes, and I will be very happy with a T1 victory. Faker is capable of everything. That being said, wish you a great League of Legends championship. See you all in the next video.